Gaming has been a part of my life for 3 long decades, and during those 30 years, I have actively played and enjoyed well over 100 different games. While numerous games offered excellent quality, their memory faded away. However, some games stand out in my memory, and years after completion, I find myself still thinking about them. In this video, we will take a deep dive into my 20 unforgettable favorites. Without much talking, let's get started with the first game. Super Metroid was the first game that made me feel like a true explorer. Released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System and developed by Nintendo, this game set the standard for atmospheric action-adventure titles. You play as Samus Aran, a bounty hunter who had the mission of recovering a stolen Metroid from the space pirates on the mysterious planet Zebes. Its non-linear gameplay and detailed map design made the game unique and interesting. What stood out to me about Super Metroid was how it told its story without saying much at all. Through the haunting environments, subtle visual cues, and eerie music, it created a great sense of isolation. The upgrades you find as you progress through the game, from the Morph Ball to the Screw Attack, also opened up new areas in the game, and this gave a satisfying sense of progression. Super Metroid has also had a great influence on gaming, birthing the whole Metroidvania genre that so many modern games emulate. From the moment Far Cry 3 was released in 2012, it caught my attention with its great design. The game launches players into Rook Islands, which is a scary and deadly wilderness, making the game exciting and captivating. You play as Jason Brody, a young man who starts as a terrified survivor but grows into a hardened fighter as he fights against pirates and mercenaries and even his own sanity. The standout feature of the game is the villain, Vaas Montenegro, who continues to stand as an iconic villain in all of gaming's history. The game retained the player's emotions with the character's unpredictability and menacing personality throughout the game. The open world design was also dope, as it allowed me to use any style I like, from sneaking on enemies to open combat. The game also has several scenes, including fighting with bow and arrows to take down enemy outposts to swimming through shark-infested waters. This game is sure to provide a lot of adrenaline rush, and the experience is very exciting and realistic. This game is a must-play for anyone who enjoys adventure games and enjoys games with great storylines and scenes. There's never been a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. Rockstar Games released it in 2018 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and later on PC. Rockstar incorporated everything that it has learned through years of developing games and created a realistic masterpiece. The game is set in 1899 when Arthur Morgan and his gang, the Van der Linde gang, are avoiding law agencies towards the end of the Wild West. The story is about loyalty, redemption. It delivers in an epic manner. The game provides an unforgettable attention to detail. Everything feels alive in the game, from the way snow crunches under Arthur's feet to the way townsfolk react to your treatment of them differently. The story is deeply emotional, with moments of reflection that hit harder than any action sequence. Arthur Morgan's arc is one of the best I've ever seen in gaming, and by the end, I felt genuinely connected to him. One memorable moment in the game is the time I camped out under the stars, watching the fire as Arthur played his harmonica. Red Dead Redemption 2 set a new bar for storytelling, world building, and character development. It's a game that I think will be remembered not just for years, but for decades to come.
An area, the gang sets up a camp as a base. This is where gang members eat, sleep, perform chores, play games, and share stories.
Anyway, I got caught by some hill country sheriff stealing a chicken, I think it was.
Half-Life 2 is the game that made me realize just how immersive a first-person shooter could be. Valve released the game for PC in 2004 and later for other platforms. In a dystopian setting, you play as Gordon Freeman, a physicist-turned-resistance fighter who was fighting against an oppressive alien regime that crushed civilization called the Combine. At the time, it was groundbreaking that I was able to follow the narration of the game without cutscenes breaking immersion. One special thing about Half-Life 2 was the way it made its world feel alive. The game has physics-based puzzles which are educative, captivating, and entertaining. From using the gravity gun to launch objects at enemies to solving environmental challenges, every mechanic felt fresh and unique. The world building was also incredible. City 17 had an oppressive feel in the environment, and the mysterious Combine structures made it feel very creepy. One remarkable scene was that of the Striders, spider-like machines that were scary as they stalked through the streets. Half-Life 2 redefined the first-person shooter genre, and even though it has inspired dozens of games after it, the storytelling and great gameplay just feels different and classic.
Great. Up there! Start her up again, Morty.
When Super Mario 64 was released, it became a sensation as it revolutionized the gaming world. The game was released in 1996 for Nintendo 64 and was a giant leap for 3D gaming. With this game, Nintendo introduced Mario into a full 3D world, where players explore Princess Peach's castle and could jump into magical paintings to enter wildly creative levels. The game also had several milestones to ensure continuous excitement. This game is iconic because it redefined what platforming could be. The freedom of movement, dynamic camera, and the open-ended level design was a new development at the time, which made it epic for players. The game also had some exciting challenges like the triple jump and other moves. The game also had some suspense, as you never knew what challenge to expect from the next painting. Super Mario 64 left behind established limits and completely obliterated them.
Here we go!
Grand Theft Auto 4 is a game that was truly ahead of its time. The game introduced new storytelling in open-world games. GTA 4 was released in 2008 by Rockstar Games for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC, and it brought a level of emotional connection that was unheard of at the time. The story begins with Niko Bellic, an immigrant arriving in Liberty City seeking a better life for himself and separation from his dirty past. However, things go south quickly from there as he gets dragged back into a life of crime and violence. It wasn't just the detailed map of Liberty City that made this game crazy, but the way it told its story. Niko wasn't some happy-go-lucky type of protagonist. He was complex and extremely relatable. The choices I made throughout the game were important, and most of the time makes you wrestle with morality in a way I'd never had to do in a game before. I vividly remember the first time I took a cab ride through Liberty City at night. The city lights and the radio softly playing in the background made it feel like I was in the game myself. The game also paid great attention to everything, from the characters to the mission design. Grand Theft Auto 4 remains an important milestone in the modern gaming industry, with a great influence that can be seen in countless games that have come after it.
Come on! Stay with me! Stay with me!
The Last of Us was released by Naughty Dog for PlayStation 3. The game is set in a post-apocalyptic world ravaged by a fungal infection that has turned much of humanity into violent, zombie-like creatures. You play as Joel, a hardened survivor, who has to escort Ellie, a teenage girl who may hold the key to a cure, across America. While The Last of Us is a game, it features a growth in the bond between Joel and Ellie as they start off as reluctant allies. As the game progresses, they develop a father-daughter dynamic that feels so realistic due to the great writing and performance. The gameplay features combat and strategy, which makes it dynamic. The Last of Us remains one of the most celebrated games of all time because of its influence on narrative-driven games.
Although I got some idea who might have come through here. School's on the other side of this house. Let's get inside. Come on, Ellie.
The Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time was a defining moment in the gaming world. It was released in 1998 for the Nintendo 64 by Nintendo. This was the first Zelda game to venture into 3D, and did so well that it's still seen as a benchmark when talking about any action-adventure games today. In the story, Link travels to prevent Ganondorf, king of the Gerudo, from gaining the Triforce and destroying the world with it. On the way, Link travels through time, explores huge dungeons, and makes friends with now famous characters such as Princess Zelda, Saria, and Darunia. The gameplay introduced revolutionary mechanics like Z-targeting, which made 3D combat more fun and seamless. This game is special to me because of its surprises. From the Hyrule field to the moment I pulled the Master Sword, every part of this game felt magical. I remember spending hours exploring every corner of the world, playing the ocarina to summon storms or open secret doors. Ocarina of Time is another pioneer of 3D gaming, especially in the sense of expansion, but yet in such a personal way. The Witcher 3. Wild Hunt set a new standard for role-playing games, RPGs. Wild Hunt was released in 2015 by CD Projekt Red for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and it's the third installment in the Witcher series. The game brought the series to global fame, making the Geralt of Rivia legendary. In the story, you play as Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter tasked with finding Ciri, a young woman with immense power who's like a daughter to him. The story involves making different decisions, and the unforgettable characters make the game unforgettable. The Witcher 3 is special because of the way it balances an epic narrative with deeply personal moments. Every side quest felt like a unique story, and sometimes I kept on questioning the choices I made, thinking about the future consequences. The world of the continent is one of the most immersive I've ever explored, from the cramped, crowded streets of Novigrad to the spooky swamp of Velen. I really liked the Bloody Baron questline because it was dark, emotional, and morally complex, making me question what is right or what is wrong. The quest was a masterpiece in the game. The Witcher 3 is still one of the best RPGs ever made. I'll never stop recommending it. Mass Effect 2 is another game I really loved when I played it. This game makes you care about every single decision you make. It was released in 2010, and in the game, you play as Commander Shepard, a hero brought back from the dead to lead a team against a galactic threat known as the Collectors. I loved the game because each of the characters have rich backstories and personal stakes in the mission. Mass Effect 2 is special because of its epic storytelling, as it had loyalty missions where you help each character confront their past. The last mission at the end of the game was also a suicide mission, where you had to make a decision which determined who lived or did not. Mass Effect 2 is a masterpiece of storytelling and character development. The personal choices added a personal and emotional touch to the game with the way it connects so deeply with its characters. Doom started a great revolution that changed first-person shooter gaming forever. It was released by ID Software for MS-DOS. In this game, you step into the boots of a lone space marine, often referred to as the Doom Guy, who fights through hordes of demons after a teleportation experiment on Mars goes horribly wrong. Doom had fast and furious action with bloody combat and a detailed level of design that made it loved and accepted globally. What makes Doom stand out is its simplicity combined with its execution. There is no need for deep details or complex mechanics, as the goal is clear: survive, destroy demons, and find your way out. The use of 3D-like graphics and atmospheric sound design was groundbreaking, making each level feel immersive and terrifying. Doom's impact on gaming is immeasurable. It popularized the FPS genre and became a cultural phenomenon, with different mods, sequels made after it, and with an entire community of fans that's still thriving today. For me, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past was the game that initiated my enduring passion for gaming. When Nintendo developed this Sega Genesis classic for release in 1991, it created my first understanding of what video games could become. In the story, Link takes on the role of a young hero whose mission includes freeing Princess Zelda and using his courage to defeat Dark Wizard Aghanim, who wants to release Ganon's powers. Dual world mechanic allowed players to switch between the light world and dark world, making Zelda: A Link to the Past unique in its complexity and exploration. I love this game amazing because it created a unique adventure feeling within me. Every adventure contained a massive world full of hidden mysteries, which transformed each dungeon into a unique puzzle designed to challenge your patience and inventiveness. Even now, I still remember how to hum the iconic soundtrack of the game soundtrack. The Ice Palace is a memorable location in the game. I remember roaming around the location for hours, and when I finally solved the puzzle, I had a great feeling of accomplishment. This game continuously achieves high praise for being an ultimate action-adventure game model. This game established foundations for future gaming projects, but forever remains an everlasting classic for me. Final Fantasy VII was a cultural phenomenon. The game was released in 1997 for the PlayStation by Square. This game was the first in the series to transition to 3D graphics, and it brought Japanese RPGs into the mainstream. You play as Cloud Strife, a mercenary caught in a struggle against the evil Shinra Corporation in Sephiroth. The storyline is also very interesting as it highlights identity in a massive world. Final Fantasy VII is unforgettable because of its emotional depth. The characters from Tifa and Barrett to Aerith felt real and relatable, and the shocking events in the story were memorable. The game was one of the first to rival movies or books in evoking emotions. Even today, Final Fantasy VII is regarded as one of the greatest RPGs ever made, as it has been remade severally and also has some spin-offs to its story. You can try out the original version, or one of the remakes, which was released in 2020. Portal 2 is a great game that is both funny and can be annoying sometimes, especially when things do not go your way. The game was released in 2011 by Valve for PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360, and it took the brilliant mechanics of the original Portal to another level. The game is filled with puzzles, humor, and unforgettable characters. You play as Chell, a silent protagonist trapped in the decaying Aperture Science Facility, which is being guided and manipulated by the sarcastic AI GLaDOS and the bumbling Wheatley, voiced by Stephen Merchant. What makes Portal 2 stand out is how it combines interesting puzzles with smart writing. The addition of new mechanics, like gels that let you bounce or speed up, kept every level fresh and inventive. The humor was on another level, with every line from GLaDOS and Wheatley leaving me either laughing or nervously second-guessing my decisions. Portal 2 is a game that feels timeless. Its combination of clever design and interesting storytelling makes it one of the best puzzle games ever created. Chrono Trigger is the kind of game that feels like it describes exactly how games should be at a period. The game was released in 1995 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System by Square. It brought together some of the greatest minds in gaming, including Hironobu Sakaguchi, Yuji Horii, and Akira Toriyama. The story begins with a simple time travel accident, but quickly escalates into a quest to save the world from a devastating alien force known as Labos. It takes players through prehistoric eras, futuristic dystopias, and everything in between, creating a sense of wonder and discovery that few games achieve. This game also had great characters and a nice storyline, and while the companions in the game are unique and meaningful to the story, they are also very funny and endearing, from the noble frog to the quirky Robo. The game has an active time battle system and combo-based attacks which were very innovative for the time. These made the combat dynamic and strategic. Chrono Trigger remains one of the most celebrated RPGs ever made, and for good reason. Its stunning art, groundbreaking mechanics, and timeless story make it as fresh today as it was decades ago. Metal Gear Solid totally introduced me to cinematic storytelling in gaming. The game was released in 1998 by Konami for the PlayStation, and it was a stealth action game like no other. You play as Solid Snake, a legendary soldier who had the task of infiltrating a nuclear weapons facility to stop a terrorist threat. The game provided an interesting plot and had a lot of memorable characters that made it feel like playing through a blockbuster movie. Metal Gear Solid was revolutionary because of its focus on storytelling and innovation. The game also broke the fourth wall in revolutionary ways, like when Psycho Mantis read your memory card to predict your actions, or when you had to switch controller ports to defeat him. The gameplay focused on strategy and patience over brute force, making every encounter a tense, rewarding experience. Scenes like sneaking through Shadow Moses as I tried to avoid detection by guards and cameras come to mind every time I remember this game. Every boss fight also felt like a unique puzzle, as you needed to understand their different strengths to beat them. Metal Gear Solid set the standard for narrative-driven games. It showed that video games could rival movies in terms of storytelling and emotional impact. Skyrim was the fifth installment in the Elder Scrolls series and arguably the most iconic. Skyrim is the game that made me feel like, yeah, I could live in another world. The game was released in 2011 for PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. The game sees you play the part of the Dragonborn, a legendary hero chosen to fight the dragons and save the world, set in the northern province of Tamriel. This game was unique because it gave you freedom. You could follow the main story, join factions, or simply wander through the snowy mountains and dense forests, as there were secrets to discover everywhere you looked. Skyrim stands out because it has a large, open world and sense of immersion. Every town, cave, and ruin had its own stories, and the game's dynamic systems made it feel like the world was alive and reacting to your choices. This model has been adopted by several modern open-world games, and even after completing all the missions, it is a game you can just get lost in when you have some free time.
You didn't think that you were the only one.
BioShock is another game that was well ahead of its time and was revolutionary. This game was released in 2007 by 2K Boston for PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. In the game, players are transported to the underwater city of Rapture, a utopia turned dystopia. You play as Jack, a man who finds himself stranded in this decaying city filled with terrifying splicers and towering big daddies. BioShock is great because of its narration and atmosphere. The art decoration of the scenes are beautiful but haunting, and the story has several twists exploring free will and morality. In the game, you had the system where you can have genetic powers alongside the regular weapons, which gave the gameplay more depth. Meeting the big daddies in the game with their heavy footsteps and loud roars made the experience immersive, especially with headphones. And of course, the "Would you kindly" twist is one of the greatest moments in gaming history.
You gotta override the switch, or Atlas has to before they kill me.
I loved Dark Souls, but this game really tested my patience. The game was released in 2011 by From Software for PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360, and it introduced a punishing yet rewarding gameplay loop that tested both skill and patience. You play as an undead warrior living in the cursed land of Lordran. Lordran is a dark and mysterious world full of cryptic and deadly enemies. Dark Souls is unforgettable because of its sense of achievement, and the progression is interesting as every death teaches you something new. The game design is also captivating, with several areas for exploration. Also, the villains like Ornstein and Smaug were so annoying and tough to kill, I remember it taking me several attempts. But once you beat them, the satisfaction that comes with it is rewarding. Dark Souls was so good and original that it carved out a new genre called Souls-like games. So if you have played anything similar, you can check out the originator of the whole genre, and I promise you will enjoy it. I left this game for the last intentionally. Resident Evil 4 provides survival, horror, and action all in one. The game was released in 2005 by Capcom for the GameCube and later ported to nearly every platform imaginable. You play as Leon S. Kennedy, a special agent sent to a rural European village to rescue the president's kidnapped daughter. What starts as a simple mission spirals into a battle against a sinister cult and its army of infected villagers. This game was revolutionary, introducing the over-the-shoulder camera perspective that has become popular in third-person action games. The game offers edge-of-your-seat tension with high-octane combat and ensures that the players are constantly engaged. The audio is also great. I remember the village square scene where you hear the chilling rev of a chainsaw in the distance. Resident Evil 4's influence on the gaming industry cannot be overstated. It shaped not just the survival horror genre, but also third-person shooters, inspiring countless games in the years that followed. It remains a fan favorite, and its recent remakes only highlight how much of a masterpiece the original truly is. If you have not played this game, I recommend that you try it. That brings us to the end of this list. Let me know which of the games are your favorites, and if I have missed out anyone that you love, let me know in the comments. If you like this video, give us a like and click on the subscribe button.